Hello again, and welcome back. In this video, we're going to be getting started with prepositions. These are little words with a big impact. What are prepositions? Well, they introduce phrases that modify a verbal idea. In English, we use prepositions all the time. Words like in, to, with, beside, and lots of others. Prepositions, though, never work alone. The following words, the following phrase, always goes with the preposition as a prepositional phrase. So, for example, in the English sentence, she ran in the woods, in is the preposition. It's telling us that the following words are going to indicate the location of her running. And so the full prepositional phrase is the preposition plus that following phrase. Not just in, but in the woods. Here's another example. He bought a book on Friday. Here the preposition on tells us that the following phrase is going to indicate the time when the buying happened. So the prepositional phrase is going to modify the verb telling us when. The preposition is on, but the phrase that follows is just one word, Friday. So the full prepositional phrase is on Friday. Greek can use the dative case for much of this kind of modifying a verbal idea. That's what dative phrases do. They modify verbal ideas. But prepositions in the Hellenistic period are slowly replacing cases. The process is largely complete in modern Greek, but in the New Testament period, we were still right at the beginnings of this shift. Which words go with the preposition as its prepositional phrase? Well, the rest of the phrase follows right after the preposition, and word order, although it's flexible in lots of places, isn't flexible here. The preposition comes before the prepositional the rest of the prepositional phrase. It's the first word in the phrase, and the rest of the words follow immediately after the preposition. Each preposition puts its phrase in a particular case, and here case doesn't carry its usual meaning. The case isn't going to tell you anything about the relationship between these words and the verb, or the verbal idea. In this use, the case just marks the words that are part of the prepositional phrase, and it's the preposition that tells you the relationship, the modification between the words in the phrase and the verb. The preposition itself never changes form. It's not declined or conjugated, and it always plays the same role in a clause. Though a final vowel on a preposition might be truncated, left off, and or a final consonant might be aspirated. So if we take the preposition apo, the final omicron is often left off if the next word begins with a vowel, so just ap. And we indicate the missing omicron with an apostrophe. If that initial vowel on the following word happens to have a rough breathing, then the P becomes roughened, becomes aspirated from ap to af. Similarly, if we have the Greek preposition para, that final alpha will drop off if the following word begins with a vowel, and we just have par. But even if the following vowel begins with a rough breathing, we're not going to aspirate the row at the end of par, just because you can't really aspirate a row in the middle of a word. So here are some prepositions that are always followed by a phrase in the genitive case. Again, the genitive doesn't have any of its normal meaning here. All it does is serve as a marker to show you which following words are part of the prepositional phrase. Ek plus a prepositional phrase means from or out of or away from. Apo, which is also followed by a genitive phrase, will mean from or away from. And ek has more of the sense of coming out of something, where apo has the sense of just moving away from something. Anti is a word that has come into English, and anti with a genitive phrase means opposite or facing something, or instead of something, or in return for something. So that idea of being opposite or facing can metaphorically be extended to the idea of matching or taking something's place. Pro plus a genitive phrase means in front of, before, or ahead of. And we use that kind of sense of pro as a prefix in English a lot of the time with words like prologue. Those are the words that come pro, before the main part of the book. Opiso, which sounds a little bit like opposite, actually means behind or after. Choris means without or apart from. Emprosthen means in front of, in the presence of, or before. Enopion similarly means in front of, in the presence of, or before. So emprosthen and enopion have very similar meanings. They're almost synonymous. So all of those prepositions will be followed by a phrase in the genitive case. It may just be one word, it may be several words. And those genitive words will be the words that you translate following the translation for the preposition itself. So we'll look at some examples. Alexandros histesin pro tu oikou. So Alexandros is the nominative subject. Histesin is the verb. So the basic idea, the core of the clause is Alexandros is standing. Histesin. But we then have a preposition, pro. So we know that the prepositional phrase is going to modify the verb, and this is going to tell us, because it's pro, it's going to tell us that the standing happened before something else. So Alexandros histesin pro tu oikou, stood before the house. And pro in this case is being used not in the sense of time, but in the sense of being in front of something, in a sense of spatially standing before something. So the preposition is pro, the prepositional phrase is pro tu oikou, and you notice that the rest of the phrase is in the genitive, and pro tu oikou tells you where the standing is taking place. Another example is in the sentence Epen enopion tu basileus lagus polus. Epen is the verb, he said, or she said, and the direct object of the speech is lagus polus. So he said or she said many words. Then we have a prepositional phrase. The preposition is enopion. So this is again going to be telling us where the speaking action happened. And to specify that location, we have the following words in the genitive case that make up the rest of the prepositional phrase, tu basileus. So where did the apen, the speaking happen? Enopion tu basileus, in front of the king. Some prepositions aren't followed by a genitive phrase, but instead are followed by a dative phrase or an accusative phrase. So en is always followed by the dative, and it means in or into, or sometimes on. Sun plus a dative phrase means with, together with. Ace plus an accusative phrase means into or toward or in. And although the en and the ace prepositions were sharply distinguished in classical Greek, in the Hellenistic period, en and ace are coming to be essentially synonymous, and their meanings have blurred together quite a bit. Ace can also be used a bit like a dative of interest to mean for something. But ace is always followed by an accusative phrase, and en and sun are always followed by dative phrases. So for example, we have the sentence, sun autes to adelpho, Sophia poruatai. The main core of the clause here is the verb poruatai. She is going, and Sophia is the subject of that going. So Sophia is going. How is she going? What more can we say about that action of going? Well, we've got the preposition sun, which means with, and so we're going to be told by the prepositional phrase that she is going with someone or something. The rest of the prepositional phrase is a little bit more complicated in this case because we have the dative phrase itself, to adelpho, and so we know that Sophia is going with the brother. We might even take the definite article there to mean her brother. But because the her isn't a usual sense for the definite article, we've added the genitive pronoun autes. So sun autes to adelpho. What's happening here is that the core of the prepositional phrase is sun plus the dative words. But remember, any phrase can be modified by another phrase, very often a genitive phrase. So the core of the prepositional phrase is sun to adelpho, but when we talk about the prepositional phrase as a whole, we need to include the other words that modify those dative words. So the whole prepositional phrase is sun autes to adelpho, with her brother. So with whom is Sophia going? What more can we say about her action of going? She's going with the brother, that is, with her brother. Prepositions sometimes, certain prepositions, can be followed by more than one case in different situations. And again, case doesn't do its usual job in a prepositional phrase. Case here simply shows which words are part of the prepositional phrase. Some prepositions can be followed by more than one case, not at the same time, but you can choose one case or another. And these prepositions are ones that have more than one meaning. The case that you put after it acts like a switch that turns on one of those meanings. So let's take, for example, the preposition dia. Dia, if it's followed by a genitive phrase, that genitive phrase switches on the meaning through or by. Where if dia is followed by an accusative phrase, that accusative case switches on the meaning because of or on account of. You can learn more about Greek prepositions and prepositional phrases in Mounce's Basics of Biblical Greek and in Wallace's Basics of New Testament Syntax. Just be aware that Mounce introduces prepositions in a slightly different order than we do, so be prepared to see some prepositions that you haven't been introduced to yet in this lesson. You don't need to worry about learning or memorizing those yet, but if you read those sections of Mounce, it'll help fill in your understanding of how prepositions in general work.